The desert doesn't kill you fast. It kills you slow, by convincing you nobody's coming. Gideon Rourke knew that truth better than most. They called him Rook because once, long ago, he used to move in straight lines. Hard, simple, unstoppable. Not anymore. Not after the things he'd done. Not after the people he'd failed. Now he rode with a different purpose. Not to win. Not to take. To undo. That afternoon, the wind was mean and dry, dragging dust across the road like a warning. Rook crested a low ridge and saw the shape of a town ahead. Wooden rooftops, a church spire, and a hanging sign that read. A buzzard circled above it like it owned the place. Rook's horse, Ash, snorted and slowed. Ash always knew before Rook did. Rook touched the brim of his hat and watched the main street through the shimmer of heat. The town looked normal from far away, normal enough to kill you. Then he saw it. A fence line near the edge of town, half collapsed, and a figure tied to it. A woman. She was slumped forward, wrists bound high, rope biting into skin. Her dark hair was tangled with dust. Her dress, brown, sleeveless, knee-length, hung on her like it had survived too many days of bad luck. A rough cord was tied around her waist, like the kind folks used when they had nothing else. She lifted her head when she heard hoofbeats. Her eyes were sharp, even through exhaustion. "Don't come closer," she rasped. "They'll shoot you." Rook didn't stop riding. "Who's they?" he asked. She swallowed, voice cracked. "This town." Rook swung down easy, like a man who didn't care if the ground welcomed him or not. He walked toward her, hands visible, no sudden moves. "Name," he said. She hesitated then. Clara Vane. Rook's jaw tightened. That last name wasn't common, especially not this far west. Vane meant money, land, and enemies. He cut the rope with one clean motion. She didn't fall. She stood on stubborn legs, swaying only once. "Why were you tied up?" Rook asked. Clara rubbed her wrists, eyes never leaving the town. "Because my husband died." Rook looked at her. "That's not usually a crime." "It is when he owned the biggest ranch for 50 miles, she said. "And when certain men decide it should belong to them." A wagon rolled by, slow, wheels creaking. A man on the seat stared too long. Not curiosity. Inventory. Clara leaned close. "They're waiting to see if you're brave. Or stupid." Rook's voice stayed quiet. "I can be both." Clara almost smiled. Almost. "Come," she said. "If you're going to help, you need to understand what kind of rot lives in this town." They walked into Sagebrush Hollow together. Main Street was lined with false smiles and real guns. Men watched from porches. A child peeked from behind a barrel and got yanked back inside by a mother who looked afraid to blink. Rook felt the town's weight, like a hand pressing down on the back of your neck. They passed the saloon. Bright letters, dark windows. A piano played inside, off-key and nervous. Clara spoke under her breath. "The man running this place is named Silas Mercer." Rook's eyes narrowed. He knew the name. Mercer was the kind of cattle baron who didn't just own ranches. He owned sheriffs, judges, and grave plots. Clara continued, voice steady but tight. "My husband, Henry, he refused to sell. So they made him an example." Rook stopped walking. "How'd he die?" Clara looked at him, and the truth in her eyes was a gunshot. "They said it was an accident," she whispered. "A fall, a spooked horse, a bad turn in the dark." She swallowed. "But I found his ledger, a book with names, payments, proof." Rook exhaled slowly. "A ledger can get you killed," he said. "That's why they tied me to a fence," Clara replied. "So the sun would do their work, and nobody would have to admit anything." Rook looked at the saloon doors. The way they seemed to breathe, opening and closing, swallowing men whole. "Where's the ledger now?" he asked. Clara's voice turned smaller. "In my house, under the floorboard." A laugh rolled from the saloon like thunder. The door swung open. Out stepped a man dressed too clean for a town that smelled like sweat and lies. Black vest, silver pocket watch, smile sharp as broken glass. Silas Mercer. He spotted Clara immediately, then his eyes slid to Rook. Mercer's smile widened. Well now, Clara Vane, alive and standing. That's inconvenient. Clara didn't flinch. "You'll never get my land," Mercer chuckled. "Your land?" He stepped closer, boots tapping the boards like a countdown. "Sweet thing, land doesn't belong to widows. Land belongs to men who can keep it." Rook moved one step in front of her. Mercer's gaze climbed Rook like a fence. "And who are you?" Mercer asked. Rook didn't offer a name. He offered silence, the kind that warns a man. "Don't push." Mercer tilted his head. "You're not from here," Rook finally spoke. "Just passing through." Mercer nodded slowly. "Then keep passing." His eyes flicked to Clara. "Because if you stay, you might get caught in something tragic." Clara's hands curled into fists. Rook's voice stayed even. "She's coming with me." Mercer's smile faded for the first time. "You don't know what you're asking," Mercer said. Rook met his eyes. "I know exactly what I'm asking." Mercer stared a beat longer, then stepped back and snapped his fingers. Two men emerged from the saloon, broad, armed, eager. Mercer spoke softly, like a man ordering a drink. "Take the stranger's gun." Rook didn't move. His hand hovered near his holster like a sleeping rattlesnake. One of the men reached. Rook's hand became lightning. The man hit the boards with a sound like meat and wood. His pistol skidded away. The second man froze, suddenly remembering he had a mother somewhere. The street went silent. Mercer's eyes sharpened. "Interesting," he murmured. "You're fast." Rook didn't boast. He just looked at Mercer like a man looking at a coffin. Mercer's grin returned, colder. "Fine. Take her." He opened his arms like he was generous. "Run. But you can't outrun a town that belongs to me." Rook grabbed Clara's elbow. Not rough, not gentle. Urgent. "Move," he said. They didn't run down Main Street. They cut behind the buildings, through alleys that smelled like old beer and newer fear. Clara gasped, trying to keep up. "My house is on the east edge." A rifle shot cracked behind them. Wood splintered near Rook's head. Mercer's men were already moving. Rook pushed Clara forward. "Don't stop." They burst into Clara's small house. Plain, worn, but honest. Rook slammed the door and shoved a chair under the knob. Clara dropped to her knees, flipping up a loose plank with shaking fingers. Her hand disappeared into darkness and came back holding a book wrapped in cloth. The ledger. Rook took it like it weighed more than paper. Outside, boots pounded. Voices barked. "Back door! Window!" Clara's breathing came fast. "What do we do?" Rook looked around. One window, one back door, no time. Then he saw it. A small iron stove. A chimney pipe running up and out. Rook's mind moved quick. "Can you ride?" he asked. Clara blinked. "Yes." "How well?" he pressed. "Well enough to survive," she snapped. Rook nodded. "Good." He ripped the cloth off the ledger, flipped open the first pages. Names, numbers, bribes. Murder paid for in neat handwriting. He tore out 3 pages. Only 3. Clara stared. "What are you doing?" "Insurance," Rook said. He shoved the torn pages into his coat. Then he tossed the ledger into the stove and struck a match. Clara's eyes widened. "No, that's proof." Rook held her gaze. Proof is only worth something if you live long enough to show it to someone who isn't owned. Flames licked the pages. Outside! Bang! Bang! The door shook. Rook grabbed Clara's wrist. Back door! Now! They burst out, sprinting behind the house. A bullet snapped past Clara's shoulder. She stumbled. Rook caught her, dragged her forward. Keep moving, he barked. They reached the corral. Ash and a second horse stood tied. Clara's eyes flicked to the second horse like hope. Rook swung into the saddle, then yanked Clara up onto the other horse in one motion. She grabbed the reins, breath ragged. Rook leaned close. Ride hard. Don't look back. Clara's jaw clenched. And you? Rook glanced toward the town, men spilling into the yard, Mercer in the distance, calm as a vulture. Rook's voice was low. I'm gonna buy you time. Clara's eyes flashed. You'll die. Rook almost smiled again. Almost. Not today, he said. Then he kicked Ash forward, straight toward Mercer's men. Gunfire erupted. Rook fired twice, clean and quick, dropping 2 riders before they could saddle up. A third man dove behind a trough. Rook rode through the chaos like he'd done it 100 times, because he had. Clara rode east, dust trailing behind her like a prayer. Mercer watched her go, then looked at Rook with a slow, furious calm. He raised his hand, and the town answered. Men appeared from everywhere. Porches, windows, rooftops, like ants boiling out of a nest. Rook's heart didn't race. It settled. This was the part he understood. He holstered his pistol and reached instead for the shotgun strapped to Ash's saddle. Mercer called out. You're not walking out of here, stranger. Rook lifted the shotgun. I wasn't planning to walk, he said. He fired into a stack of barrels. Boom! Wood exploded, rolling into the street, blocking 3 men at once. He rode hard down an alley, drawing them away from Clara's trail. Shots followed like angry bees. Rook turned a corner and nearly collided with the sheriff. Sheriff Daltrey stood in the street, rifle raised, badge dull like a lie. Daltrey's eyes were tired. Don't do this, he said. Rook's voice cut sharp. You still call yourself law? Daltrey's jaw tightened. Mercer pays for the jail, the school, the doctor. Rook stared at him. And who pays for the graves? Daltrey flinched like the words hit him. Then he lowered the rifle, just an inch. That inch was everything. Rook fired at the sign above the street. Chains snapped. Wooden letters crashed down, kicking up dust and blocking Daltrey's line of sight. Rook didn't shoot the sheriff. He didn't need to. He rode out of the alley, out of the town's center, and toward the ridge where the desert waited. Empty, brutal, honest. Behind him, Mercer's men chased hard. Ahead, the sky opened wide like judgment. Rook pulled the torn ledger pages from his coat and glanced at them as he rode. Names he recognized. Men in nearby towns. A judge, a bankman, a preacher. Mercer wasn't just a sickness in Sagebrush Hollow. He was a disease spreading. And Rook had 3 pages of cure. A bullet grazed Rook's arm. Hot pain, quick blood. He grunted, but didn't slow. He reached the ridge and turned. Mercer himself was riding up now, flanked by 2 men. Mercer's horse was glossy, fed better than half the town. Mercer's voice carried. Last chance. Drop the pages and I'll let you crawl away. Rook looked at Mercer like he was studying a snake. Then Rook lifted the pages and set them on fire. Mercer's eyes widened in disbelief. Rook's voice was calm, almost gentle. You think paper is the only proof? He tapped his chest. I already read it. Mercer's face twisted into rage. He charged. Rook waited. Not because he was fearless, because he was ready. At the last second, Rook threw the burning scraps into Mercer's path. Mercer's horse reared, spooked by flame. Mercer fought the reins. And that half-second was enough. Rook fired once. Mercer's gun flew from his hand, spinning into the dirt. Silence hit like a wall. Mercer sat frozen, humiliated, unarmed. Rook didn't shoot him. He rode closer, close enough that Mercer could see the truth in his eyes. "You tied a widow to a fence," Rook said quietly. "You let the sun try to finish her." Mercer swallowed, voice shaking with hate. "You won't get away with this." Rook leaned in. "I'm not getting away with anything." He looked past Mercer to the men behind him, men who'd followed out of fear, hunger, loyalty, or stupidity. Rook raised his voice. "You boys still want to die for a man who'd sell you for pennies?" Some of them looked away. One of them lowered his rifle, then another. Mercer's mouth opened, furious, and Sheriff Daltrey rode up behind them, breathing hard. Daltrey's gun was out. He pointed it at Mercer. Mercer stared at him, shocked. "Daltrey!" Daltrey's voice broke like old wood. "I'm done digging graves for your money." Mercer's face went pale. Rook watched the sheriff, searching for truth. Daltrey swallowed. "Where's the widow?" Rook nodded toward the east. "Riding!" Daltrey exhaled, like air leaving a prison. "Good," Mercer snarled. "You're making a mistake." Daltrey's eyes were wet. "No, I've been making mistakes for years. This is the first right thing I've done." Rook turned Ash away. He didn't stay to watch Mercer get arrested. He didn't stay for applause. He rode toward the east, toward the place Clara's dust trail had disappeared. The desert stretched wide. The sun leaned low. Hours later, he found her near a dry creek bed, horse-drinking shallow water. Clara was sitting on a rock, wrists bandaged with torn cloth. She stood when she saw him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "You burned it." Rook nodded. "I saved what mattered." Clara's eyes hardened. "And what's that?" Rook pulled the 3 ledger pages from his coat. New copies, rewritten from memory in his own rough hand. Clara blinked. "You wrote it down?" Rook shrugged. "I've had to remember worse." Clara stared, then let out a shaky breath that might have been a laugh, might have been a sob. "You didn't have to do this," she said. Rook looked past her to the horizon, where the sun was bleeding into the land. "Yes," he said. "I did." Clara's voice softened. "Why?" Rook's eyes stayed on the distance. "Because a long time ago, I was one of the men who did the wrong thing when it was easier." He looked at her now. "And I'm tired of being that man." Clara stepped closer. Not too close, just enough to be heard over the wind. "Where do we go?" she asked. Rook swung into his saddle. "You go to the circuit judge in Redstone," he said. "You hand them those pages. You tell them Mercer's reach is wider than they think." Clara nodded. "And you?" Rook took a breath that tasted like dust and redemption. "I go where I'm needed," he said. Clara hesitated, then climbed onto her horse. For a second, they rode side by side, 2 riders against a world that didn't like mercy. At the ridge, Clara pulled her horse to a stop. "Rook!" she called. He looked back. Clara lifted her chin, eyes fierce. "If you ever pass through Redstone, you'll have a place to rest." Rook held her gaze. Then, without smiling, he tipped his hat. "Don't waste it," he said. Clara turned east. Rook turned west. And as the sun fell behind the mountains, Gideon Rourke rode into the fire-colored horizon, a man with blood on his past, and a vow in his chest. Because the desert doesn't kill you fast. But sometimes, if you ride hard enough, you can outrun what you used to be.